Hey guys, and welcome. In this video, I'm gonna share you 10 things that people consider to be important about guitars that they're not really that important. And you can spend or give as much effort, time, or energy to these things as you want to. But these are my opinions on the matter. But first off, before we start, I want to say that some of these things are things that some of you might like and you might disagree with me on, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm not saying that these things are bad. I'm just saying that guitar makers and brands will try to push these things as being maybe a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist, and they will try to make it seem like if you don't have this, then you're either bad at guitar or the guitars you have are bad because they don't have this. And it's just not true. You can take this that I'm sharing with you either way you want to, but it's not meant to say that this guitars that have this are bad. It's just they're not the solution to how to make a guitar great, basically. So I have a list of 10 things because I thought, that's a nice round number. And so I'm just thinking I'll share these 10 with you, and I can do 10 more some other time if you want to. It's been a while since I did a top 10 list of some sort, so let's get into it. The first thing that will be sort of pushed as a great thing that your guitar needs, and that isn't really true, is locking tuners. Some people have an issue restringing their guitar, and they find it to be hard to know how to do it. But if you know how to do it correctly, then locking tuners are not something that you necessarily need to have. If you have a guitar that doesn't stay in tune, it's not because the tuners are not locking tuners, it's because they're probably bad tuners. And there are inexpensive, poor quality, crappy locking tuners that you can get that will not solve anything for you. I promise you. You can find those. I've had those. And the thing is, it's the quality of the tuner that is the most important thing. If you buy nice, high quality tuners and you use those, then it's more likely that you're going to have good tuning. There are other things that can also mess up your tuning, like, for example, the way your nut is cut. If you have a nut that is poorly made and it's made from bad materials, then just changing the tuners, it can solve it, but it could also just be that the problem continues and it doesn't matter. The next thing I want to tell you about, and I just want to make the record clear on this because I see a lot, especially on newer guitar designs and newer models, and it's not true, is headless guitars. They talk about them being better balanced, they're talking about them being better, easier to tune and better tuning stability. And the thing is, the reason why they're doing this is because they don't want to actually tell you the truth, and that is that it's a lot cheaper to make a headless guitar neck than it is to make a guitar neck with a head. And if we take a look at this neck here, for example, that you might have seen in my previous video, the board to cut this out, if I want to make it out of one piece, and this neck is not a one piece, but would have to be as wide as this. And as you can see, the piece would have to be this wide, but not for very long. So it would be a lot of wasted materials to make something that essentially, if it was headless, would have to be about half. Because if you look down here, this is about half, a little bit more than half here. And so when you make guitars, and especially you will notice this if you start to be maybe a little bit of a DIYer making your own guitars, the price by meter of a board goes up pretty quickly the wider you want the board to be. And so that's a factor for everyone. Obviously, when it comes to big companies, like Fender or Gibson or something like that, they have a easier time buying a lot of wood and buying it at really good pricing, or at least what we would think is a good pricing per meter, but they're buying 1,000 meters for the upcoming quarter or whatever that they're going to build guitars, because they are going to pump out thousands of guitars. And as a DIY builder, you might never even come up to building 1,000 guitars in your entire life, because you're making like one guitar a month or something. And if you think about it, the companies that do the headless guitar necks are the smaller companies. And it's not because, you know, the bigger, older companies don't care about innovation. It's because there is a cost thing, and the younger companies are better at making you think that they don't care about legacy, because they don't have a legacy. It doesn't mean that the guitar neck isn't bad or that the guitar is bad. And it also doesn't mean that you can't have two guitars and one stays in tunes better than the other. But it's not because it's headless. It's hopefully because it's higher quality, but it could be other things. For example, if you have a Les Paul, the traditional headstock angle is problematic, and the way the tuners are lined up makes the nut harder to cut professionally to be right. If you have something like a Fender, you have a different angle for the strings, but you also have them going straight, and that will help. And so there are definitely better designs, but they're also a question of doing things right. And if you, for example, have a Les Paul that doesn't want to stay in tune, I would look at things like, for example, is the nut actually cut correctly? Do you need to maybe switch it out? And, for example, are your tuners good? Those are things that you can do something about. Obviously, the neck angle can be an issue, but I find that the few times I've had issues with Gibsons, replacing the nut will actually solve it. So the third thing that I kind of feel is a thing is the finish. There's a sort of idea that polyfinished guitars are bad, but technically it's the best finish. It's like, I know that nitrocellulose lacquered guitars have a special place, and it has this idea of them being, you know, the way they're supposed to be. But if you have a good guitar and you like it, it sounds nice, you like the way it plays, you know, you like everything about it, the finish doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And if it's poly, just be happy that your guitar is probably gonna live and be good and work fine longer than you are. Not to be grim or anything, but the finish is in a lot of ways actually better. And when it comes to the idea that, for example, the nitrocellulose finish lets the wood breathe, I would argue that that's not a positive, that's a negative. And that you would actually want your guitar not to breathe, because what you want is the wood to be stable, and you want the wood to stay where it's supposed to be. You don't want it to expand in some weird, like, wood is very good at being a sponge, and you wouldn't want it to want to be that. Like, that's the whole thing that woodworkers are fighting against. That's why we put finish on things. And if you want the wood to breathe, even if I would strongly suggest that you don't want that, then, for example, buying a guitar kit and either leaving it raw so that you can just play it the way it is, or finishing it in something like linseed oil or gunstock oil or you know, China oil, or, you know, something else, would just give you a guitar that is 1,000 times better. I mean, like, the only thing you have to do is put in the hours, you know, so that it can vibrate, because I imagine that that's what they're talking about when they're talking about breathing, that thinner finish will let the guitar breathe, vibrate, basically. But also, they never talk about the fact that there is a protective coating under the cellulose lacquer. You can't spray any kind of spray paint or, you know, anything on a guitar body without a sealer that stops it from sinking into the wood. And if you look at some really crappy old guitars that no one actually ever talks about wanting, you can see how the lacquer finish has gotten sucked into the wood. This is obviously not something that you will see on these old Fender from the 60s or Les Pauls from the 50s or whatever. They have a nice, strong, solid, hard, not letting the wood breathe finish underneath. That is sealing the grain and tightening it all up and making it hard as hell. And it's probably what is actually the thing. So it's silly. And if a guitar sounds good, it's good. If it plays good, it's good. If you love the guitar, if you like it, it's good. It doesn't matter if it's a secondhand $100 Squier that you bought off your neighbor's kid, or if it's a Fender from '62. Or the only thing that matters is that you like it. And that leads me into my next thing, and that is magnets. Magnets they don't matter. Like, they matter obviously to how the pickup sounds and things like that, but some people are like, oh, ceramic magnets are so bad, we can't use that. But there are high-end, nice pickups that use them. That sounds totally fine. And there are artists, usually in things like metal and things like that, that use those because they're easier to make a high output pickup with than it is to use, for example, Alnico 5 or Alnico 2 or something like that. And you have other things as well, like what type of wire you're using to create the bobbin, the thickness of the wire, and also how many wounds you're putting on. Those things will affect too. And the issue is when it comes to like these super inexpensive beginner guitars or whatever you want to call them, with these bar magnets on the underside, you all have seen them, is that they are just trying to make something that works, like functions. They don't care if it sounds nice. They don't care if you enjoy the tone. They're just thinking, okay, we'll use as strong of a magnet as possible so we can put as least amount of winds on the bobbin so that we, save money on the copper wire. But you can, for example, which is something that I've never seen anyone do, but you could totally buy, a set of super high-end Fender pickups and remove the Alnico 5 pull pieces and replace them with just steel pull pieces, and then slab on a Alnico 5 magnet on the other side. And I promise you, I can't promise you that it will be something that you like, but because obviously I don't know your taste, but it's not going to be the same thing as one of those others. So the magnet is just a part of it. The next thing, and this is a little bit harder, but if a guitar has figure maple or, some sort of figure in its wood, it doesn't really matter. Maybe actually it might, because it's like a structural imperfection in the wood, so it might not actually be a good thing. But it looks really nice, and if you like it, then that's great. But if you don't care, then don't let anyone tell you that you should care, or that this guitar deserves to be more expensive or whatever because of the wood, because it's not technically better structure-wise. It just isn't. What you want is the straightest, plainest grain possible. Just the straightest. It will be the most boring thing ever, but structurally it will most likely be the best thing ever. It's just one other of those things that it kind of like, why should you have to pay more for something that maybe is bad for you? Next one is stainless steel. Now, to some of you, this could be really important, because if you wear out frets really fast, I can understand that you want to replace the frets, have stainless steel, and never have to do anything with them again. But the issue is, you still have to maintain your stainless frets. They are not something that you can just put on your guitar and your guitar will never need maintenance again. And I feel like a lot of companies that do stainless frets, they talk about them like they're some sort of solution to all problems a guitarist could ever have. Like, you will never have to sand down your frets and fix them and make them flat. You will never have to recrown them. You will never have to repolish them. You will never. No, you still have to do all of those things. You might not have to do them as often as before, but then again, how often are you actually grinding down your frets? I feel like this is one of those things that people think that they do a lot more than they actually do. I have about 5 guitars they're probably pretty close to needing new frets. But they're all pretty old. I've had them for a long time. I've played them a lot. And, you know, it's not really that big of an issue, I think. I mean, obviously, if you have one guitar and you play it all the time, and you're on your sixth, refret in, 2 years or something insane like that, I get it. But if you're doing it because you've been told that like this is the solution, this is what you need, a guitar that doesn't have stainless frets or not even a good guitar, then you're just being lied to, and it's just a thing. But you will have to polish them. You will have to like make sure that if you get you can still get fret sprout, for example. You're gonna have to work with them, and some of these things are actually even harder to do because the frets are harder. So you might want to weigh that against your regular frets. So if you really care, you really care. If you don't really care, that's totally okay, because you don't need to worry about it. The next thing is multi-scale. I get that, like if you have issues with your hand where you need to have a different angle that you hold your hand in order to be able to play guitar, then maybe that could be the solution for that. But if you need to tune your guitar in a way and you're noticing that some strings are getting floppy, then what you need to do is get 2 sets of strings and just replace the floppy strings with thicker strings. You don't necessarily need to get this multi-scale thing. Obviously, if you like it and you think it's cool and it's all you've ever wanted and it makes sense to you, then I don't mean to stop you, obviously, but it's not anything special. It's not something that you need to worry about. And for a lot of you guys, if you've been playing for long enough and you've gotten used to how a guitar neck, a normal neck is, it's just going to be weird and strange and feel weird. It's just going to be, you think you're playing a G chord, but you're not, because you put your fingers in the wrong place, basically. And it's just another way of trying to sell you the idea that this is something you need. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't have to worry about it. The next thing is laminate necks. Basically, you have like a maple part in the middle, and then maybe 2 thin strips of rosewood or something, and then mahogany on the side. You've seen a laminate neck, a 5-piece or something. And they can be very nice and very stable. Sometimes I feel like the discussion is, if you don't have this, your neck will warp. And the thing is, that's not true. Like, if you take care of your guitar, and I'm talking minimal taking care of your guitar. I'm not saying that you have to like bathe it, which is you obviously shouldn't do, but you don't have to clean it every time you played it. You don't have to change strings every other weekend, or oil the fretboard once a day. You don't have to do all these crazy stuff that people sometimes make it seem like you have to do. But if you take care of your instrument, you won't have a neck that like warps. And if you have a neck that warps, it's most likely because the piece of wood was low quality. Isn't because it was a 1-piece neck. And that leads us into my next thing, which is the carbon fiber rods that I see everyone put in guitar necks nowadays. I feel like I can't watch anyone build a guitar without seeing them put carbon fiber rods in the neck. And I would only do that myself to a piece of wood that I felt was so bad and so low quality that I felt like I need to do something with this. Or if I made a guitar neck that was extremely thin. We're talking like 17 mils thick, or even less than that. If I had to make a neck that was so thin that I couldn't put a truss rod in it. And so if someone's trying to, like, for example, sell you this neck and tell you like, oh, you have this guitar and it's amazing and it has these carbon rods in it, instead of seeing that as a positive, maybe you should ask yourself, okay, well, why was that necessary? Guitars have been built for hundreds of years and they've never needed this before. And now all of a sudden, I'm going to play this guitar with 10 gauge strings and I need carbon fiber rods in it. Is this just a feature that they've sort of made up in order to sell me crappy wood? And I think that you will find that in most cases that's true. I'm not saying that people that do this on YouTube is doing that, because I think a lot of the people that build guitars on YouTube don't know what they're doing. And it's just a game of trying to make people think that they know what you're doing. But in that case, I think it's more of I'm doing it because I've been told that this is something I should be doing or something. But when you see companies do it, I think it's because they have pieces of wood that they realize that they're gonna have issues if they don't do something to it. It's the same thing with like pressing in resin into wood and stuff like that. You don't see that much in guitars, but you do see that in some other areas where they're like, oh, we need to stabilize this piece of wood with resin, and it's like, yeah, you need to, because it's low quality wood. But if it was a really nice piece of maple or ash, or it wouldn't need that, because you would dry it the correct way, you would plane it the correct way, and the wood would stay put. Obviously, if you have a guitar and you like it, and it has carbon fiber rods in it, don't let me tell you that it's bad. It doesn't mean that guitar has to be bad, but it's not a feature. You shouldn't have to pay extra because they didn't, give you a nice piece of wood, if you know what I mean. I hope this makes sense to you. But if you have a guitar and you love it and you think it's cool and you think it's nice, the neck is most likely never gonna warp because the carbon fiber rods are in there. But did you have to pay extra for the carbon fiber rods? And then the next thing is the same thing a little bit, like roasted maple necks. I think they look nice. I'm not gonna lie. They look cool. I like the darker roasted look to it. And I think a lot of people do. But is it a feature, or is it a solution to a problem, and you'll have to pay for it? Because if you think about it, why do they have to roast the wood? Well, because they need to dry the wood, and roasting it is gonna be quicker than taking the time to actually dry it the correct way. And so maybe you're paying extra for them doing something not necessarily the right way. It doesn't mean that it has to be bad, but maybe the neck would be better if it had been dried the correct way. You can never know, but maybe roasted maple necks should be cheaper alternative than a grade up, pay more sort of thing. But again, if you like it, you like it. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. But again, who's taking the actual cost for something being less than it used to be? But anyway, that's the end of that. Now I've ranted a little bit. It's kind of fun to get to do something else than build something for once. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below and all of that. And if you're new here, don't forget to press the like and the subscribe. And if you're old here, you can just press the like button. Talk to me in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until next time, stay awesome and cool. And go and build something or play something. It doesn't have to be a guitar. You can build a shelf and play a book. Anyway, goodbye for now.